Deep beneath Dover Castle lies a sprawling network of tunnels that were an official secret until 1984. These underground rooms and passages played a key role during the Second World War, but few people know about their more recent history. In the 1960s, the Cold War was at its height, and Britain had to prepare for World War III. Hundreds of people met in secret to rehearse how the country would function in the aftermath of a nuclear strike. Today, the tunnels, over 100 feet below the ground where these exercises took place, remain closed to the public, but we can take you down and give you a tantalizing glimpse of Britain's secret history. From the outside, Dover Castle looks like a classic medieval fortress, but below ground there are over 3 miles of tunnels. These corridors and passages have been built throughout the ages and include medieval, Napoleonic and Second World War sections. The reconstructed Second World War tunnels are one of English heritage's biggest visitor attractions, and every year over 300,000 people come to explore the old Army and Naval headquarters. After the end of the Second World War, the military shut down the facilities here at Dover and the tunnels were abandoned. But in the early 1960s, Britain was once again threatened by war. The Cold War was heating up, and the threat of a nuclear attack from the Soviet Union was terrifying and real.
These are maroons. They indicate the black warning. It means there is imminent danger of fallout in your area.
The British government had to work out how they would govern in the wake of a nuclear strike on Britain. A new chapter in Dover Castle's secret history was about to begin. To get things underway, the British government contacted the Ministry of Works.
It was lunchtime and the telephone rang, and I got a message from somebody saying, go to Dover Castle immediately and meet Mr. Morris and say to him, "Dumpy again."
On arrival at Dover Castle, Trevor Goodbourne was met by members of the Home Office, handed a torch and led into the tunnels. Left untouched for almost a decade, they were a mess.
They asked me how long it would take to clean the place up, decorate it and get it ready for temporary use. Quick think. And I said, 8 months. I was then promptly told, you have 20 days.
It was the autumn of 1960, and the British government was in a hurry to make these tunnels fit for use. But for what purpose?
Dumpy was the secret code name for the nuclear level of tunnels under Dover Castle. In the event of a nuclear war, it was realised that London was going to be a major target, so central government would no longer work anymore. They had to split the country up into 12 regional centres of government, so that perhaps if Birmingham was taken out and London, there would be 10 other areas of government that would keep running while they were dealing with the disaster. And Dumpy was one of these.
But if the regional seats of government like the one at Dover were to work, they had to rely upon thousands of secretly trained volunteers to man them. Pamela West and Terry Wiseman both visited Dumpy on exercise in the early 60s. It was such a secret environment that they never met and only knew enough to carry out their specific role.
When they walked down in there for training, it would have been very surreal, I imagine, because you're walking in there into a world where you're imagining your loved ones, the people you knew, the life that you know had gone, vanished completely. People really got into the exercises. It could be very, very atmospheric down there. And it was only perhaps under there that the reality of what a nuclear war was going to be like hit.
I always found some of the exercises were so realistic that when you're in the middle of your shift and you were really working like mad, it was very easy to believe that there was pandemonium and chaos up top.
Yeah.
Terry Wiseman was a senior signals officer in the Civil Defence Corps. He visited a number of these kind of sites all over the country.
So you think this was the signals office?
This was my signals office. I had a desk at the far end there. My gosh, this brings back some memories.
Pamela West also remembers her time in Dumpy. She was a sergeant in the Territorial Army and trained as a communications centre supervisor during the 60s.
There would have been teleprinters down that wall, and probably the telephones over there, I can't really remember, and the clerks' desks down the middle.
Even if the phones went down, there was an elaborate communication system to link with the other regional seats of government.
The dispatch riders used to come in and collect the messages and go off, presumably, to Reading, Oxford, where have you. Well, I'm sure they didn't go on their motorbikes all that distance. We never found out where those messages went.
The tunnels were adapted to cope with nuclear contamination and contained radiation-proof living quarters for around 420 people.
There would be a representative down here from every government department, and this location here, with the staff here, would run this part of the country until things got a bit better and we could eventually go back to central government.
We were always told that this was going to be the main RSG and the Prime Minister would be in attendance if an atomic war broke out. But whether that was...
Every control in the country was told that. Yes,
yes, I can quite believe that.
After an attack, the authorities had to be able to send messages to the public above ground. This was done from a broadcasting studio, but the room was so secret that few of the people who worked down here knew of its existence.
Of course, this was the BBC studios.
Oh, we never knew anything about this.
Did you not?
No.
Oh,
No.
every regional seat of government and sub-regional seat had a fully equipped BBC studio, and they could broadcast messages from the regional commissioner about traffic control, crowd control, where there were feeding points and so on.
It is vital that you should know what to do immediately after a nuclear attack.
No one was quite sure exactly how much of civilization was going to survive afterwards, but it was very important to let people know what was going on. In fact, in the event of a nuclear war, one of the exercises that the BBC is meant to have taken on doing is actually switching off all the channels when the warning went and leaving either a programme like Gardner's Question Time running, so that, in a sense, we'd have all gone out to something very pleasant rather than scary.
Years passed and the threat of nuclear war receded. The huge expense involved in maintaining the tunnels became increasingly hard to justify. Finally, in 1984, just 3 years before the fall of the Berlin Wall, Dumpy was decommissioned.
Looking back after all this time, do you think it would have worked?
Doubtful. Doubtful.
You really think so?
Yes, yeah.
It's interesting that this whole scenario of nuclear war is almost like a nightmare that was dreamt up by governments and civil servants and secret services that finally collapsed with the understanding that none of it would really have worked. In fact, the nuclear side of the bunker wouldn't have kept out radiation, and it would never have withstood a direct hit.
The Cold War tunnels are closed now, but these empty corridors are a stark reminder of what life might have been like in the event of a nuclear holocaust.